21-17, the completeness of an application from LD's Automotive for an amended site plan. The amended site plan proposes to reestablish the previous salvage yard use and includes related parking, drainage, lighting, and landscaping. The property is located at 233 Main Street, tax map 31, lot 21, in the MDR zoning district. The property owners of record are Lori E. Thomas, Rev Trust, Lori E. Thomas TR, half interest, and Stephen R. Thomas and Judith R. Thomas, Rev Trust. Stephen R. Thomas and Judith R. Thomas TR, half interest. The application has been found to be complete, so we are moving forward the continuance of the application. Welcome, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Joe Pesnomo from Hancock Associates, representing LD's Automotive. When last we met, we had submitted revised plans, and we were awaiting further review from Mr. Keach. We got responses from Mr. Keach, and in a letter dated January 9th, we provided further response in a letter to the board on January 13th.
It is.
And revised plans that were dated the same day.
Okay.
So subsequent to that, we worked with Dee and Mr. Keach, and the board is in receipt of a letter dated today from Mr. Keach, and I believe everything is in order. All issues have been resolved, and we believe the board can move forward. We are requesting, or have requested, 2 waivers from the board, and we've presented the waiver request forms to the board. The first waiver is for location of all wells and septic systems within 100 feet of the property. We have done our level best to try to ascertain that information from the town and from New Hampshire DES. We were putting requests to DES for every individual property. Got what we could. We've noted that on the plan where they were not, but we just can't get the information. So that's one waiver. We feel it's appropriate to grant that waiver, seeing that we're not expanding the use from its prior use. We're utilizing the existing well on site and the existing septic system on site. We did get a approval for operation from DES for that system from back in 1998, and submitted that as record. So we're not making any changes to that or the capacity of that system, which is 750 gallons per day. So we think, given the fact that we're making improvements to the site with regards to the stormwater and so forth, that the board can act in the absence of having definitive information on that. The second waiver is a partial waiver on the landscape buffer requirements, the actual planting requirements of the screening along the north property line, which is the other salvage yard. So we're just saying we've got salvage yard against the salvage yard, and we don't want to put the trees that are required there. We are fully compliant with the quantity of trees and the type of trees all along the residential abutters, and that's delineated on our plan. So again, it's a partial waiver, just recognizing the 2 uses on the northerly property line. Other than that, we are in full compliance with site plan regulations and other zoning ordinance requirements. And again, we believe Mr. Keach's letter summarizes that we're all set with his comments, and I believe Ms. Voss didn't have anything beyond what Mr. Keach had in his last letter.
Okay. John, I just have a question. I noticed that we received this information late in the process. I know we had a holiday on Monday. Is this based on late responses? I think maybe there just needs to be some discussion around the timeliness of.
Yeah, it really more has to do with, Monday holiday, and last week, just trying to keep up with the workload going on last week was a
Okay.
little hectic.
All right. I think that's something we need to have a discussion on about internally, just to make sure that we have materials in a good timely fashion. Unfortunately, I didn't have as much time that I'd like to go through and review these, but some of that's, more of us, if it's not the applicant's issue in terms of timeliness. Does the board have any questions at this time? Yes, Karen?
On the front gate and the front, had we decided now what are you going to plant? Because the front makes a big difference. This is a residential area.
No, we are. We're going to leave the wooden fence there, and then we're going to supplement the existing gate with screening slats, the fiberglass strips that you put in the chain link. So the gate's gonna stay there, and the fence is gonna stay there. And then on either side of the kind of entranceway or opening in the gate, there's pavement between the road and the fence. We're gonna take that pavement up, and we've presented a landscape plan to plant 7 trees out in front there.
Okay, they're in the front.
Yeah.
Okay, yep. And the other question I had was, there's nothing on the plans I noticed here again on operating hours.
Speak to that?
Yeah, probably 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays, and maybe 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, we haven't really started work, but those are probably going to be the working hours throughout the week. Sundays off. This is going to be shut. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sunday the place is going to be shut off. That's about it on the opening hours.
All right, good. That's a good question. So we are in a residentially zoned
Yep.
district, received the variance to continue operations. Is the salvage yard that you abut to the north, is that also in the MDR district? Or is that a different zone? Does anybody know that?
I didn't check that one. If I had time, I'd be checking on this. What is it, Jim?
I'm pretty sure it's MDR.
Okay. Is there, and I guess I asked that, I get that we are talking about existing landscaping features that, because there's another salvage yard, it's, what's the benefit, or is it really value to improve the landscaping and receive the waiver on that side? But if that property potentially becomes a residential use, would there be a concern about not having the landscaping there to boot? So,
Can I say something regarding that?
sure, I'm kind of speaking out loud, but yeah, go ahead.
So this property used to be one property. The previous owners used to own the whole thing, and they split in the middle. I'm assuming the same challenges that the previous owners had in developing this lot to residential will be the same difficulties in the other piece of property. So I doubted if they ever develop it, and that's a successful business that they run over there. I don't think they're going to be leaving anytime soon. That's just my personal opinion.
Sure. No, I get that.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification, no 14 on the cover sheet of the plan has proposed hours of operation Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 to 4.
Okay, it was on there, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't had time to really look at it, so I didn't see it.
All right, so it
Okay.
was 7 to 7, or 7 to 6, and 9 to 4 on Saturday?
7 to 6 and 9 to 4.
And Tim, I'm going to throw this back at you, your wealth of knowledge. For businesses operating in, so say, the Village District, or those that have essentially located in a residential neighborhood, have we determined hours of operation, especially in consideration of the surrounding abutters? Or has it really been business to business?
Yeah, we've done it case by case. The only hours of operation that are consistent throughout town are the construction hours, which I think are 7 to 7. I don't remember offhand, but the construction hours are in
Saturday.
the zoning, but
Is
the
there,
operating hours for businesses, each business has its own requirements. If you have say, a home business, and you had a strict zoning, operation 8 to 5, just to pick numbers, does that mean that at your home business at 5 o'clock, you got to lock up and go upstairs and have dinner? Or, there's just hundreds of cases. And even some of the repair facilities, the bulk of the work is done during normal business hours, but if they offer a tow service, if there's an accident at midnight, the tow truck is going to come in with a vehicle. So, the short answer is no, we don't have a consistent.
okay. Yeah, I imagine if we have a home business operating after 5, the board can get together and stand outside the person's houses and come up with some fines. But that being said, we have the construction hours because of the potential for noise in consideration of
Right.
residents. So I assume you have forklifts that are offloading junk cars and things like that and moving them.
Yeah, but this is type of business that usually, again, because that's what I do now. It starts early, it finishes early. Nobody is moving any forklifts after 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah,
They're already home at that time. It's just, and there's not going to be any trucking overnight. Obviously, it's not a tow business. There will be some trucking during the day, obviously.
Sure.
But no, a 3 o'clock in the morning call, and nobody's going to go start a truck next to the neighbors. Basically.
yeah. I guess I was curious if at 7 a.m. sharp, you'd be, backup noises from the forklift and, dumping, heavy cars on top of other
Usually what
cars.
happens now, my guys start at 7:30, they're not there at 7, they start at 7:30 and they have usually 30, 45 minutes of morning, routine, changing clothes, breakfast, coffee, whatever they do. And then I start my machines at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's gonna be the same thing here. I'm not trying to cause any friction with the neighbors. None of my loaders have backup alarm, which, not that I'm trying to snitch, but my neighbors that do have loaders have their backup alarm on, and it kind of drives crazy. My loaders don't. It's all part of the same reason, which we just don't want to bother anybody. And the only thing that you guys should be worried about is the morning, definitely not the afternoon or the evening.
Sure.
That's not even an issue.
Yeah, and I think that's what Karen's thought was, as mine as well, is, is there, somebody who is, maybe doesn't work or has stay-at-home mom hearing, big noises at 7:01 when their
Yeah, no,
child's sleeping.
that will not happen.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Yeah, I just want to point out to the applicant here that there is a noise ordinance in the zoning, so you may want to become familiar. It's really common sense stuff. You can operate 7 to 7, but, you cannot
Make
operate.
noise at 7 a.m., yes.
Or, no, you just can't make.
Excessive.
or End up your business being so much louder.
Right.
Than the ambient noises, because if it becomes a public nuisance, then it becomes an issue that we have to enforce.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so
I understand, I respect
just
that.
respect your neighbors and don't be too loud. That's really what it boils down to.
I have 3 residential neighbors in my property now that we've been, same hours, it's all gonna be the same. I'm not worried about the noise.
Good.
okay. Any other questions from the board, comments? John, did we determine if we have a virtual attendant, and if so, if
Yeah, let
that
me check.
individual's online?
Let me get here real quick, see if I get anybody looking in.
Is there anybody else from the public here looking to seek comment on this application right now? Okay.
As their hands raised, and there were 3 attendees. Nobody's raised their hand.
Okay. If they can hear me, if attendees, if you do wish to speak publicly on this application, please raise your hand via the raise hand function, and what is it, Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. All right, going once, going twice? All right. Okay. All right, so does the board want to consider the waiver requests right now? Does that seem appropriate? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So waiver request number 1, the applicant requesting that the planning board consider waiving the following, which was the requirement to show existing septic systems as well as on abutted properties. And I'm trying to find the draft motions.
They're on bottom of page 3 in the staff report.
Here we go. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion regarding the waivers?
Yeah, I'll make, sorry. I'll move to grant the waiver request for Article 3, Section 230-23 for sideline plantings abutting 237 Main Street, for the reason noted in the waiver request and per the board's discussion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Greg seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Waiver is approved. Waiver request approved, voted 400. Any discussion this time? Okay. Anybody like to make a second request, or excuse me, motion regarding septic
This is for the
systems
second
and
one.
abutting?
This is for the property,
The one in green?
the planning.
Septic systems on abutting properties?
Yep. No, we just did that one, I thought.
Right.
The second one has to do with planting requirements for the side yard screening.
Sorry, my apologies.
We just did the plantings.
Yep.
Yeah, we did the landscape, okay. And now we have
Septic
the
system.
septic
Septic
system.
system, yes.
Yes.
Can you read that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I move to grant the waiver request for Article, want, give me glasses? Would help.
Yeah, Article 1.
Article 1, 230-14.1.cc, to not require the locations of septic systems and wells on abutting properties to be located on the site plan for the reason noted in the waiver request and per the board's discussion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400. Waivers granted. I did see in the Keach Nordstrom letter that was just came over this afternoon to us that you were going to use the existing driveway, that the previous premises did not have a driveway NHDOT permit. What's the process on that? Are you going to be applying for a driveway permit? Yes? Okay.
We're not making any changes to to its physical location or
Yeah.
configuration or any of that. It's just merely transforming it from a grandfather driveway, because it existed prior to 1970, and just having that formally approved by New Hampshire DOT, which is what DOT wants. We
All right.
have had conversations with them with regards to that.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got an update on that. On all state roads now, if there's a change of use, and it doesn't even matter if it's, not increasing the square footage of an existing use, but all changes of uses are now requiring new driveway permits from the state, so.
How long, is that part of the process that's, been bundling up. Are they backed up on that?
To put it mildly.
To put it mildly.
It says it right here, number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that is a condition on our approval?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other questions, comments before we move to review the application? Excuse me, to
Approve
vote on
the
the
am-
application?
Amended site plan.
Yep. All right, that said, would someone like to?
I move to approve the amended site plan for salvage yard use at 233 Main Street, tax map 31, lot 21, with the following conditions. All items in the K&A revision number 1 and revision number 2 must be satisfactorily addressed and reviewed by staff and the Keaton Nordstrom Associates in a final review letter from K&A received by staff. All granted site plan review regulation waivers requests with section citation and date of approval need to be added to the plan. Needed to be added to the plan notes. Receipt of NHDOT driveway permit with approval number and date noted on plan. All professional stamps are affixed to the final plan set. Other conditions not listed in the board may find appropriate. I don't know of any right now. Please note for the record, but it should not be included in the motion, that the applicant will need to comply with the current Board of Selectmen's approved salvage yard license for the property.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on the motion? And I think this would be the appropriate time to discuss whether or not there are any other conditions
Right.
that the board should consider. I haven't heard of any concerns from anybody that would want to be conditionally addressed.
You don't need an AOT because you didn't have 100,000 square feet. Yeah. That was a
Right.
large area in the back. Yeah. I'm good.
Okay, if Tim's good, then I'm good. All right, do I have a second on the motion?
Yeah, Karen already,
Karen did.
Karen did.
Yes, I'm sorry, you said that.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Vote carries 400. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
All right.
You just check to see if Liz Thompson is on there as one of the,
I'm sorry, would you say, Karen, do you want to see who's on?
I just wanted to know if one of them is, Max was going to try to get on. I just wanted to see if she did.
Yeah, John, did you see if Max Dobson was?
No,
pres-
there's 3 names, Torrin Kelly, Brad Williamson, and Sarah Smith.
Okay. All right. Okay, with that, we will move to continue the hearing on the application from December 15, 2021, PB 21-18, completeness of an application from Crunk Engineering for a site plan. The plan proposes the demolition of an existing retail building and the construction of a new 9,500 square foot, 24-hour outpatient healthcare facility with related parking, drainage, lighting, and landscaping. The property is located at 26 Plaistow Road, tax map 25, lot 4 in the C1 zoning district. Property owner of record is Ben Detson Plaistow Realty Trust, Norris and Marjorie Bendetson, TR. The application has found to be complete. Invite anybody from Crunk Engineering to come and speak. And when John's out of the way, if you could just state your names, that'd be great.
Your project up there.
The microphone in front of you is not very sensitive, so if you could pull it closer between you. We can hear you very well, but the people who are listening, watching this on the television often complain they can't hear people speaking.
Sure. So my name is Adam Crunk with Crunk Engineering. I'm here representing the owner of the property and our proposed 24-hour outpatient healthcare facility. You may have noticed some changes from the last time we were here. To abide by the front setback, we pulled the building back a few feet to meet the 50-foot setback. We also removed the parking that was between the building and Plaistow Road, leaving a green space there. We showed parking spaces that were in compliance with the code. Let's see. Additionally, on January the 6th, we received approval for a side setback variance. And so this plan indicates the approval of that variance of 15 feet. You probably noticed from Mr. Keach's letter dated January the 9th, there are a few minor issues to address. First one, in HDOT permitting. I did speak with Jim Hewitt in District 6 today. He indicated that we'd likely get approval without the need for any mitigation measures. The septic permit is still underway. We agree to adjust the pavement as Mr. Keach suggested there, the pavement section. Let's see, and lighting and electrical plans will be delivered and reviewed administratively as well. So we believe and hope that all those conditions can be approved tonight and satisfied administratively moving forward. As you probably recall from the meeting in December, there was a lot of discussion about the use of this building, who we're representing. And so for that reason, tonight with me is Mr. John Skevington, the CEO of Parkland Medical Center. Talk a little bit more about this use and help understand why we feel like this would be a beneficial use within the town of Plaistow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, John.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Like Mr. Crunk said, my name is John Skevington. I'm the CEO at Parkland Medical Center, and excited to be here tonight, have the opportunity to be in front of this board in the town of Plaistow. I think just in case folks don't know, Parkland Medical Center is located in Derry, New Hampshire, and we're a level 3 trauma center, primary stroke center, and work very closely with the EMS services here in town already. We're the medical resource hospital for those services. And what we'd like to propose, this project that Mr. Crunk has been representing us on, is we would like to bring a 24/7 freestanding emergency room to the town of Plaistow. Some of the features of a freestanding emergency room, we're open 24/7, 365. It's staffed by emergency room physicians and emergency room nursing staff. We feature imaging suites, so CT, ultrasound, X-ray. Typically, these centers are about 8 to 10 bays and 10,000 square feet, including a dedicated trauma resuscitation bay, pediatric area, and a room that is safe for behavioral health patients as well. The differences often between, one of the questions I usually get is what's the difference between a freestanding emergency room and an urgent care, for example. One of the major differences is we're open 24/7, 365. We are staffed always by emergency room physicians. And in addition to the minor injuries that urgent cares typically treat, we are equipped to treat major injuries such as cardiac arrests, strokes, obviously broken bones, and other major injuries as well. So that's kind of an overview. Happy to take any questions or answer anything further that the board has.
How would you rate, how would you describe the difference between like a hospital emergency room and the care that you provide? And the other question I have is it typically the space that you are allocating comparable to an emergency room facility? inside of a hospital?
10,000 square feet, just depending obviously on the size of the emergency room, but 10,000 square feet is less than what you would typically see at an
Okay.
acute care facility. For example, our emergency room at Parkland is 19 bays versus the 8 bays that we
Oh,
have
okay.
with this project. The way I would describe it, whether there's any differences in care, think about it as if you lifted an emergency room off the side of a hospital and you were placing it in your town. The only difference is instead, if a patient does need an inpatient bed, instead of going up an elevator, we arrange for transport to that to
Right.
the facility.
So the patient's bed would not necessarily be part of a normal hospital emergency room anyways. Basically, when someone needs a bed, they're transferring them from the emergency room to a ward. So it's part of the hospital, not part of the emergency room.
Yep. Exactly.
So is it more just the demand that you see in this area to facilitate this size? Is that where you're getting this?
Yeah, so we have, and when I say we, Parkland Medical Center's parent company, Hospital Corporation of America, HCA, operates 2 other hospitals here in the state, Portsmouth Regional and Frisbee Memorial Hospital. We do also operate 2 other freestanding emergency rooms, Seabrook and Dover. When we're evaluating locations for these services, there's a number of factors at play, but what most interested us in this location is the distance to other New Hampshire hospitals. So when you look at the access to emergency room care, residents in this town and surrounding communities have to drive upwards of 25 minutes to stay in New Hampshire. And so
Or
our goal is to
Hampstead or
keep
whatever.
patients
Yeah.
in New Hampshire and keep patients close to where they live.
Is there any primary care offices, anything like that? It's strictly 100% urgent, or free, emergency care, that type of thing?
Strictly emergency care.
Okay. And in terms of, I'm glad you mentioned that you had some in Dover and Port, and as well as Seabrook. What kind of visits are you seeing at those locations, and is it supposed to be, anticipate it being comparable?
Yeah, it's anywhere from 35 to 25 to 35 visits a day, just depending on the day of the week. Obviously, we expect comparable visits at this
Yeah.
location.
I think that, the board's had some good discussion, right? So a couple years ago, we had nothing in town save for some primary care operations. And then, we have our first one that was built. The model is primarily nurse practitioner and other non-physician roles. So, and they're busy. And then, we've seen another applicant come in and been approved. What is the unique features, and I think we know the answer, but versus the urgent, a convenient MD and a what was the Exeter Health with the other one? What are the unique features for this facility? Strictly because of its acuity level of, treating emergent cases, that kind of thing?
Yes, so being open 24/7, having a board-certified emergency room physician, the ability to take care of more acute services than an urgent care can. And so, for example, our other freestanding emergency rooms, while obviously it's not an everyday occurrence, treat patients with strokes right there in the freestanding emergency room, heart attacks. Those are services now that if you present to an urgent care, you get transferred to a hospital. And we actually work very closely in those communities that we're already in, our own existing communities with the urgent cares to be able to, I think that brings an added benefit for the urgent cares here in town to have these services closer.
Is there, I assume that the model is advantageous to treat patients closer to their homes, but then to transport to HCA facilities. Is there any situation where someone comes in and because of, you're so busy and there aren't beds available that these patients will spend any amount of time in this local facility? Or do you strictly see them transported within 2 hours if they need to go to a hospital for further care?
It's possible that patients could. It's hard to say, just depending on, what's going on. Our goal is when patients are in these freestanding emergency rooms, that we want to transport them to the main campuses or to the facility of their choice as soon as possible.
Okay.
That's-
Yes, Karen?
That's what I wanted to know, because I am very familiar with Parkland over in Derry. And you do use quite a few communities right around there, Londonderry and Derry right around there. And anything that, wherever you are set up, that is pretty much the hospital in this area that you would be sending them to, correct?
Is your question whether patients would be going, if they need an inpatient stay, would be going to Parkland?
Yeah.
That is likely the case, but there's
Okay.
always patient choice at play.
All right, because a lot of people here, myself included, go to Methuen, which is very close, in fact, it's closer, to get to Holy Family. And in that case, if you are affiliated now with Parkland Medical Center, this is a part of you, right?
Yep.
Is there a choice, free choice, to that person in, say, living here? Because the other point is the Exeter Hospital, which the one we do have up here, affiliated with Exeter Hospital, that is not that far either. I mean, that's not as far as Portsmouth, it's not as far as Seabrook, it's not as far as Dover, it's pretty close. And that, we have a lot of people who are affiliated with that as well. So I guess my point is, what we're adding is another affiliated with hospital, with an emergency care, which to me, I don't know, it's a combination of what we already have, these two here. Because that's what I wanted to know, who it was affiliated with. That was my main concern, that we didn't get an answer last time.
Thanks, Karen. Is HCA a for-profit or not-for-profit?
We're an investor-owned for-profit company.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
So just to clarify what Karen was saying, I thought I distinctly heard you say it is up to the choice of the patient. So you don't really care where they're going to be transmitted. If they don't have a choice, then you might send them to,
Yeah,
Bachman.
patient choice, whether you're in a freestanding emergency room or in our main campus emergency.
and as far as I understand,
play.
the Exeter does the same thing. Yeah, and so it should not be whether or not we're affiliated with another facility. I don't think there's a real big issue to that.
Yeah, I think that, if you go to your primary care physician, right, and you need, a knee procedure, they're going to affiliate, they're going to refer you to someone at a hospital but you have, and not everybody understands this, but patients have the right to say, thank you, I'm going to go to, some other hospital that I feel more comfortable with, or that for whatever reason works for me. So I assume that that's no different. You're just bringing your services to the local community. Seems to be the model for healthcare in this day and age at this time anyways. Is this a two-story facility?
No, it's a one-story building.
Okay.
Tom?
Yes.
So from what you were saying, your frequency was, as you probably know, the 125 is an extremely busy roadway. The egress to 125, is that going to change in any way? Are you changing
No,
the
it's
normal
not
path
planned.
that's already there already?
Yeah, the access is not planned to change.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, we spoke with District 6 already, and they indicated because there's the center turn lane as it is, there's likely not to be any mitigation measures as part of this new construction.
Okay.
I think there needs to be a campaign to show people how to use a center turn lane.
Right.
That is still one of the most baffling things for most drivers. They're probably all from Mass anyways, but that's my annual Mass joke. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
And great point, because if you are seeing a higher level of patient, right, I think we're going to see more ambulance visits than perhaps some of the other ones, especially 2 in the morning, emergency situations. So that point on 125, and I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen and Tim and anybody who may know, what's the future plan for that section of 125? Is there any anticipated changes to that roadway, or is what we've seen done, is it,
There's going to be a center in there?
yeah, is there going to be any further development? Because that is,
Not that we know.
Not that I've heard of. I don't know about you, Greg. I haven't heard of any changes.
We've heard about the Main Street calming study that the state is doing, but that's not 125 at all.
Sure.
That's Main Street. We have no idea in terms of where DOT is going to be planning.
Okay.
And I would think that there needs to be something else happening, like, for example, what is happening, more development on 125, and then they may be having an interest to take a look at the traffic egress coming over the border and coming through 125 before they would go off and start changing something. Like the example being the Walmart exit or turn there. I think that's been made more serious because we have development across the street now, and we have traffic going both ways. So the state's now saying, okay, we're going to take a look at this. We haven't committed that we're going to do anything, but at least we're going to take a look at this and see if it makes sense to change the traffic light times or whatever. So I think the same situation further up the road, if that lane in the middle, if people know how to use it, or if there's more accidents there, then I think the state would take a look at it.
yes, Karen?
My point was that in that section, plus, the convenient care is over here, and they're right across the street over there. And then you got Exeter just right here. The amount of time and space between these 3 places that are going to be running crazy, with emergencies, they all will have them. There's no island going down here. So have you ever tried to get out of Shoe Barn or out of any of those to come this way? And then you have people going that way to try to get in, crisscrossing traffic. And have you seen the traffic that shows right in the middle of the town, right there? That is where the traffic is on 125, coming in and out of those places where there is no middle island because they didn't want a middle island. Now you're going to have an emergency thing on one side, you have another emergency one on this side. It's where it's located. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The location of these two, I think is not safe, and it's not good, but the DOT will probably answer that one.
Well, I think it's a fair comment, Karen, and the board, I thought we did a good job of identifying the issues at another intersection, right? Namely, as we said, the Walmart exit. And we made recommendations to the DOT that we thought would benefit the town and help safety. Is there any thoughts from the board regarding this concern? Is a great, we understand that if an ambulance is coming in to pick up a patient, I would understand that they would have their lights on. Would that be correct? And departure, or is that just dependent upon the patient's status?
It's really dependent on the patient's status.
Okay. And do we know what type of exits they would be taking if they're going to go to a Parkland affiliated facility? Would they be heading north on 125 to come out, or would they? I think that's a tough question, but
I don't know that I could answer
Yeah.
that.
John, I think, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. One established feature for this particular site already that is an advantage for traffic coming into the property, it's a 2-lane driveway, and that extends back, say, 200 feet at least, before there's a turn into this facility. So it isn't a matter that any vehicles going into this site are going to be interrupted immediately with traffic associated with the on-site movement of vehicles. So you do have to go well into the site before you're going to see that first intersection and have to deal with that, any outgoing traffic as you're coming in. So that's a good feature that already exists for this particular site.
Are you saying, oh, so the driveway, if we're looking at page C3 of the plan,
Right.
the driveway is actually at the bottom, am I looking at that correctly? Where's the egress?
The best sheet is C5.
C5?
Yeah, the layout plan. So what I'm talking about is Plaistow Road, and then the entrance drive, the ingress egress. You know, it's set up as one lane in.
Okay,
You know, it looks like there's a turning capacity for left-hand turns and right-hand turns. But you can get well into the site before you're going to start receiving intersection traffic.
That's the whole point, getting in.
yeah,
You know, as opposed to, for example, you go into the Demoulas parking lot, you're not that far in before there's a right-hand turn there.
But you have a
And
light.
there's quite a bit of queuing at times trying to utilize that entranceway. That's not that deep into the Demoulas, say, Coles parking lot.
sure.
I've learned myself, when I go down there, is to go along the front of the buildings and then utilize the long driveway going straight out to 125. You know, not interrupting the flow of traffic closer to 125 within that.
Well, what was the estimated patient visits per day?
There's 25 to 35, and there's
Okay.
typically 8 employees.
And how many, what do you historically see at your other facilities in terms of transports via ambulance per day?
It's a very low number of the overall
It
percentage.
is, okay.
And I would imagine most of the patients coming in are probably coming in on their own, or are they coming in by ambulance?
Mostly on their own.
So if this was a retail establishment with high volume, we might see 50, you know, higher volumes per day. It's still, as Karen was making, the question is there any recommendation that we could make that makes sense, that helps keep this location safe and the people that are accessing it? Are there any recommendations that we might
Keep in
consider?
mind, sorry to interrupt you, but
Sure.
keep in mind that volume that we see is also spread across 24 hours.
Sure.
Yeah, so peak hour traffic, because it is staffed 24 hours, I mean, typically, there could be 0 trips in the peak hour, you know, on a
Do-
daily basis. It just depends on whether
There
or
is
not
no
there's an
peak hour.
emergency.
Do you see, you know, some stretches, maybe first thing in the morning and then maybe in the evening, or?
Most of it starts in the afternoon and
Okay.
then goes into the evening, nighttime.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to point out that it seems of late, and we have been dealing with a lot of projects along 125, but it seems of late that the State Highway Department is really taking an extra look and a lot of interest in the changes of uses. They're requiring permits, state highway permits for changes of use, but they've also looked at the on-site travel patterns of vehicles going to and from these properties that we're reviewing at the local level for site plan approval. They may be looking at, the state DOT may be looking at a long-term improvement plan for 125, making it safer, you know, probably putting in median strips where they don't exist now and where they're now warranted. So that may be something they're planning in a long-term plan, a long-term improvement plan that they haven't, say, divulged to the public yet, including the town. But it may be something worth investigating, you know, and talking to them about.
Yes, exactly.
Gotta be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it is in need of improvements for safety purposes.
Yeah.
And, you know, in slowing down the traffic a lot of times. I mean, it's amazing how fast a lot of travelers are going to and from, whether they're going down the hill, you know, or up the hill.
Yeah.
But, you know, the speed of traffic today, everybody realizes it has picked up.
Yeah.
And every fifth car is juiced up. You know, the horsepower has been increased, the noise from the vehicles, the muffler systems have been modified. And, you know, you don't know if you have, 10 motorcycles coming by you when actually it's a small, say, foreign vehicle that's been souped up.
Yeah, the traffic is such that it gives us chest pain, and we might need the urgent cares on the weekends
Yeah.
when the traffic's built up.
I have a question, I mean, obviously, these type of uses are driven by statistical data. I mean, we have this enormous aging population of which, if you're not there yet, you're probably getting closer to it, like everybody else. And, I mean, your numbers must be proving out that these type of facilities are going to be, a growing demand for, I'd say, over the next 20, 30 years. Is that the projections that you guys are looking at that are driving this type of use to be proposed?
Yeah, that, and then also, I think what you would find is there's a need for these, and then the experience at these facilities are far better nationally than the experience at main campus ERs.
Being one of those victims of these cardiac issues, it really is a lifesaver if you can get to one of these things before your ticker stops. These facilities can save a lot of lives.
We have numerous
And these
examples
things come on,
of that. Yeah.
a lot of people aren't aware at all.
The board had some good discussion. The board had some good discussion, right? So, we've seen this model in town for businesses, and then the proliferation of a certain type of business, and the question is why. So,
Sticker shock of prices causes stuff like this to happen too, and it's
Yeah.
happening more often.
sure.
Even when I go in the supermarket.
So yeah, that's true. If you can find anything there. But with that in mind, it's more a question the town, because of some of the things we're working on outside of this application. What makes Plaistow a good location for your third endeavor with this type of model?
It's really the bringing these emergency room services closer to the residents here. When we look at, just to the previous question, the time it takes to, in one of these real life-saving instances, the time it takes to transport to a facility matters. We've had numerous examples in some of our other freestanding emergency rooms of young patients who've had experiences actually at retail centers nearby who would not have survived a transport to one of the main campus ERs. So that's the primary driving factor there.
And as a location for Plaistow, is it sort of our location as a border town? Is it access to certain roadways? Is there any specific thing that made our location maybe more desirable than, a different town? Or
It's the traffic counts play a part in that, but at the end of the day, it's 25 minutes to the closest New Hampshire hospital.
Okay.
And so that's where the value of these services have really proven themselves.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, Karen?
Okay, I wanted to speak in terms of events happening and how quickly they can save your lives. But when we made a call, and this is in the neighborhood, that we made a call, and it's the rescue squad that comes immediately. It comes immediately, it beats everybody. It beats the 911, it beats all of them. So it comes, and this is in the middle of the night, and it took this person, it resuscitated right there. They are trained to do that, emergency, right away. And then they are transferred, and they were there in less than 25 minutes to Holy Family, for example. So to say, my problem is that here we are, all of a sudden, they all came at once. Why does everybody want to just all of a sudden, in this one area, have all these different things? I mean, does the convenient MD know that this one was coming in? And, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they probably tried to get out of it now. I mean, I just don't think it's the timing. That's what I want to say. It's the timing. of the production, not doubting that we can use it, but it's the timing right now where we have not really looked at the traffic, we have not really looked at the safety. It does need to be done, and all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3. And that's why I do question, all of a sudden, we have another one. We haven't even got the other one up yet. So I just, the need that's there, I just don't see the timing as being at all correct for our town.
I could respond to just a couple of
Sure,
things,
that'd be
if I
great.
might. I think it's important to reemphasize the difference between this center and an urgent care. We're going to be open 24/7, and there are clear differences in ability to take care of patients between an urgent care and a freestanding emergency room. And, I certainly don't want to speak for any of the local fire and EMS services. I have had conversations with those folks. What you find, whether it's at one of our freestanding emergency rooms or a main campus, particularly for first responder services, the time to transport and bring these services closer is definite. But for them, and what they're thinking about is also, if I've got to drive 25 minutes out of town and then the next emergency happens, now I'm pulling resources from somewhere else. And so the benefit to your first responders is that they're going to be able to keep their trucks in service in town, so that if multiple emergencies are happening, which it does at the same time, they're going to be able to respond to those quickly.
I don't perceive, from talking to the fire chief, I don't perceive that the Plastow Fire Department is in the business of transport. They already have an ambulance service that they deal with, and literally it's their services to go to the site and provide care, and then if transport is needed, it is done by a different organization. Either the patient calls somebody, or they call the ambulance service. So I don't think I don't think the EMTs here are in that business of doing transport.
Yeah, I think that you've got the emergency at home, patients, unconscious or major trauma or something, and
They're
they
there.
need the care to come home. That's going to be the emergency call. I'm guessing that you're seeing someone who fell and really hurt their knee, and their husband or wife brought them to your facility because it wasn't necessarily an ambulance visit required, but they were in bad shape, or they maybe hit their head and they don't feel so great, or they have I had some chest pain. I don't know, maybe something's going on. You find out that they're actually actively having a cardiac event or something like that. So I'm guessing these are the differences between the 911 call that brings the emergency care to someone's house versus these patients coming in themselves. Is that
It's
sort of
all of the above. I mean, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right, but all those scenarios exist. And yes, I understand that the town fire service is not in the business of primarily transporting medical patients. That is whether it's a service provided by the town or another service, that is a real factor that those folks are concerned about, is time outside of the service.
I will say that with the service that you are providing, there's probably a far more likelihood that after they attempt to provide care, that you may be a choice for them to go across town and continue that care of that patient versus transporting them to a hospital someplace. So that, I'll have to have a conversation with the fire chief to see if this is going to change the business that they are in.
Yeah, you're not receiving.
I see a uniqueness in the business that you are providing, very distinctively different than the business that the other two providers are providing. So I'm happy that this is not three cookie-cutter facilities that are all doing exactly the same thing, that you're providing a different level of care and probably a much more extensive level of care that you would normally see in a hospital, in an emergency room.
I assume that if a 911 call happens and we respond to a home, they're not transporting them to your facility. If they need to be transported, they're going directly to a hospital, correct?
No, they can transport directly to
They
our
can.
facility.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
That's where that time is really saved by having that facility closer. And when we look at distance to other emergency rooms, and I spoke about the distance here in town to other New Hampshire emergency rooms, that makes a real difference.
So Tom, that's probably the big difference, right, between this facility and urgent care?
Yep.
No one, someone who might be in cardiac arrest, I guess, could go here by the ambulance. They're not taking them to the urgent care.
No.
Yeah. No, I think that was a good differentiation that we just got, which was,
That's a big differentiator.
the other ones
right
are
there.
walk-ins and transports out if needed. This is a potential transport in, as well as walk-ins and so
And
on.
the other thing I'm hearing too, a lot of complaints, just because they can't get the people over at the urgent care as well. You hear people go, they take a number, then they get called, and then they gotta come back.
Yeah.
That's why we've got the CD one coming in.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I hear that.
Yep.
Well, I guess that's a good question, and this is probably a larger conversation. We've already been having it, to discuss 2022, but, why does CVS go across from Walgreens and so on, and, right down the street is then,
In that case, they're providing exactly the same service.
yeah, exactly. So,
Can I ask a question in terms of, I know we're probably not at this level, but where your facility is, if you're going north, you're going to see the front of the building, which I assume is where the sign is going to be. But if you're heading south, if you're coming up the hill, will they even be able to see your building? Or will there be a sign that's on the wall closest to 125?
Yeah, the details of the signage is still to be determined, but I can tell you this, the primary emergency room signage would likely be where the door is located.
Okay.
On the south side of the building.
Yep.
Yeah, there'd probably also be a sign indicating what the facility is facing Plaistow Road on the east side, but whether it says emergency, whether it just has the name of the freestanding ER, that's to be determined.
So I'm thinking if people are coming south, up the hill, they could drive right by and not even see your building, and whether or not there needs to be signage, an emergency room signage on 125.
Yeah, and there's also the large kind of marquee sign that's there right now. There'd likely be signage on that as well. It says emergency.
Thank you.
yeah, I assume that all signs will conform with our ordinances and requirements. Someone remind me, there's just woods north of this lot, is that correct?
That's correct, which are part of it's part of the parcel for the shopping center to the north.
Okay.
It's all the same land.
All right. So I think there was some good discussion. I think that we have some takeaways to discuss, some of our economic development plans, why businesses choose this location. Thank you for sort of giving us some greater insight into the facility, what services it will provide. No doubt, in my mind, I think will be good for the residents and the community. But with that being said, is there any zoning issues, anything that any of the members of the board want to bring up at this time?
No, don't see any.
No, the only thing I have, like I said, is location. Why they're all clumped together, why did they pick this spot? I guess that's what I'm asking. I'm not against them, just why are they locating here? I just don't think it's feasible for emergency all to be together. I just don't get it.
The guess I would take is because it's right on 125, right? That's the easiest
But
access for people.
125 goes a good deal
No,
up.
I understand that, but if you look in our town, if you want to go to Plaistow, 125, I guess would make the most sense instead of off 125. for Cups
Yeah,
Lake Road.
and I think that
No, I get
the
where you're coming
board's,
from.
yeah, the board's actively discussing why businesses come here, why certain types of businesses come to this town, and what the draw is, and why others maybe don't. So it's valid. We tend to get things in waves for whatever reason.
Chairman,
Yes,
when the time comes, you may want to announce to the public if they want to
okay.
ask any questions.
Good point. I thank you for mentioning that, John. So with that in mind, is there any public comments, either within the room or virtually? I know we have 3 individuals that are on virtually. I don't know if they want to speak publicly.
One participant already said they didn't have any questions. Yeah, no questions, thanks. No one else.
I think they're just fans of us, John, you know? These planning board meetings are just, you know,
Yeah, these are riveting.
You don't have to have a subscription.
NFL, planning board, you know, what do you want? I know where I'm going with that.
Lucky the NFL's not competing with you on Monday nights.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back to the staff report, it looks like,
I'd like to continue this.
yeah, there was some comments that K&A's second review may require some verification. And I apologize, I haven't
Mr. Chairman,
gone through it
can I help a little bit?
exclusively. Yeah, go ahead, John.
In going over, this submittal, and we do know that, time was of the essence and it was shot to put everything together, but when I went over this with Dee today, it's a matter, this proposed motion was put forward, taking into consideration that the applicant would have to comply with Peach's last remaining critiques, along with all of the other minor issues, before the plan would be signed. So that's really where it's at, because we were taking into consideration in our deliberations leading up to tonight's meeting that we've now had this particular applicant before us on 3 different occasions. We had the fire chief here, who gave a good presentation in one that helped us gain some more knowledge of this particular use. And, I know, people, a lot of people may not be fans of this particular use, but we do all have to understand, this is a high-end profession. It is a new facility being introduced. It isn't a high traffic count associated with this use. And, these facilities are being built because of what's going on in our population. And if you ever need one of these things, you may not think you may ever need one, but God forbid you do need one, and you're able to get to someplace like this, it makes all the difference in the world whether you're going to be up above ground or not. So, the industry knows what it's dealing with, and it's dealing with an enormous aging population that, sooner or later, you're going to have heart congestion or, other acute onset of, and you're going to need emergency services. And it keeps people alive as opposed to the other way, so.
Yeah, I think the only situation I'm looking at, John, and to the board, is that it looks like the applicant responded on January 5th. Is that correct?
This plans for the 7th. It was right after the BZA meeting on the 6th.
Okay, so I look at the Keach Nordstrom report, and I see some strike-throughs, lots of them, and I see ask about location, add note, add detail, what about landscaping, need electrical plan.
Everything.
So,
Those strike-throughs were basically the applicant saying that those were completed.
yeah. So,
We're just saying, and the board can do what it wants to do.
Yep.
We're just saying, these are ancillary checkoff items that they don't get the plan signed unless they accommodate. So Steve Keach still has control over making sure everything is provided for
Yeah.
before the board signs off. Do we want to have them have to come back when really it's technical issues that will be resolved?
that's the that's what I'm sort of saying out loud. You know, the board doesn't sit there and review electrical plans. We do, because we feel strongly about beautification of 125. You know, what is can you reiterate the landscaping plan for the?
Sure, and I can pull it up here. I mean, there's landscaping that's been added between the building and Plaistow Road 125. Doesn't look like it's included here. It should be the last 2 pages of the packet that was printed.
And John, why were those? Why were these all struck through in red, like on page 2 and 3?
Once.
Yeah, this is their second visit.
He's looking at the PDF, Karen, that was sent to us.
Yeah, I have it, right?
Oh, you have it?
I
Okay,
know.
you
What
have
I'm
it.
saying is, we had no time to go over any of this.
Yeah.
Got it last night.
Mr.
by
Chair,
mail.
just continue it for another month. There's no reason to be any animosity or
No.
argumentative about it. Just, we'll wait and get it done later.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking about. I think
We
that,
don't have to get nasty or anything.
no,
Oh, I'm not trying to
Let's
be
be good.
nasty, I'm
Let's
sorry.
be nice to one another. Process.
no, I think that's all it's about, right? Some of this may just be administrative stuff and dotting the i's, crossing the t's, and making sure that we cover everything.
Right.
And if we feel like there's still enough things that need to be, just taken care of so that the plans are more complete, or we've seen a trend in some of our applications to sort of allow more conditional things, and without a full-time code enforcement officer and things like that, we don't necessarily have full visibility on these things being taken care of. Tim, do you have any questions? The elder statesman of and I don't mean that, I just mean experience.
Excuse me. Yeah, well, it does seem like there's quite a lot. And I understand the sense of Dee's comments in his staff report that there's some items mentioned in Keach's second review that need to be done and have his approval. So, I mean, in one sense, you can say, all right, once we get a letter from Keach saying, yes, this item has been addressed and it's okay, then that's kind of a check mark. Yep, that condition is done. However, there seems to be quite a lot of that. So I think it's, unless the consensus is to conditionally approve, I would prefer that we continue the hearing and see that list pared down a little more.
Okay, yes, Al?
So if I may, I believe the letter that you had in hand that had the red marks was actually the letter from last month. There was a new letter from Mr. Keach dated January the 9th.
Right.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's
which
the
was
one
the
I'm looking
second, which was actually the second letter.
at. Right.
It was just on.
And those issues amounted to the NHDOT permit, the septic permit, the electrical plans, a new comment about asking for a different asphalt pavement section, which we're happy to comply with, and that was really it.
And so the items that are still left from the January 9th article are covered in the proposed conditional approval. It says all comments of the K&A Revision 2 report are addressed and the plan updated accordingly. We really don't need to talk about, I don't know, do we need to talk about December 8th? I don't think we do. Those items have been covered.
Well, we see the
9th is really what's left.
progression from December 8th comments.
Right. Right, so the red line markup, I think I know what that document is now. There was a call between ourselves and Mr. Keach. And prior to that call, we sent that markup so that we could tell him, hey, here are the ones we have questions about. We had that conversation, it was a good conversation, eliminated a lot of the comments. And so then we further addressed some of those comments, which is why they're actually eliminated now.
Yeah.
So the letter that has the red marks is,
So those were your questions?
those were our questions.
Okay.
Right.
Well, that helps my understanding of some of the documents. And some of this is, we'll have some discussion internally about receipt of documents and how turn around on some of that stuff. Some of that's on us. All right, so if everybody's looking at the January 9th report, I think that offers some clarity in terms of where we're at right now. Does anybody feel like there's anything outstanding that still requires a continuation? I'm okay with continuing, or if the board feels strongly about conditionally approving, we can consider that as well.
I mean, as long as the items in the January 9th memo are going to be covered, and that's part of the motion, then I would feel comfortable with
Yeah.
doing a conditional approval. And that also gives us time to be able to review the January 9th article.
Tim, your thoughts?
I don't, I want to continue.
I don't know. I guess I can go either way. John, what's your feeling on these? I mean, you and Dee are the ones that have to.
I mean, seriously, I don't want to make anybody upset, but I'm just saying, the issues that Steve still wants to have resolved, they will in fact be resolved before this board entertains endorsement of the site plan. But on the other side of the coin, if the board feels that it needs to deliberate about this use further, or investigate any aspect of it further, or understand it better, I mean, that's really up to you. I don't want to interfere with that. I really don't. I want people to feel good and well-informed about when they vote, yea or nay. And there shouldn't be any animosity involved with it. You know, I mean, there are a lot of uses that we don't want to see in town. I don't see how this possible healthcare use could, where does anybody think that would possibly be a bad use for the town? I just don't see it. These things are so needed. It is so much demand for healthcare. I don't know if this country could ever produce enough. I mean, we are a country that tries to take care of one another and really do everything we can to extend our lives. And, you know, if anything, it's an extension of life care facility that's open 24/7.
Well, the use has been approved. You know, we really can't debate that. We're really just, at this point, my feeling is that we're just, do we have everything for the plans to be approved? Have we addressed every concern that we have, not about use, but about, you know, ordinances and laws and regulations and everything else, and anything else we can think of? Is landscaping been identified, and are we okay with that? Do we have any further concerns about the traffic flow that we would consider addressing with an NHDOT? If the majority of the board feels strongly that we're ready for conditional approval, I'm okay with that as well. We can move forward with that.
I just want to give one example. They could come in with a fast food establishment, and one of those coffee shops, and it's not the Double D one, but one of those coffee shops, I just can't believe the amount of traffic it draws. And you know which one I'm talking about on the way out of town. I mean, forever the queue's wrapping around. There has to be 2,000 vehicle trips a day associated with that, and it's the worst location for volume of traffic and the congestion of traffic than any place else up and down 125 between here and 495. we're talking about a use here
Yeah.
that would produce 1/100th of the traffic flow than that thing does, and it still exists. And it's at a highly congested area and intersection of that particular road. You know, there's nothing but congestion down there, and somehow it works.
Yeah, if a Chick-fil-A wants to go in,
It's
I'm fast tracking that.
because of Haverhill. That's Haverhill side.
Yeah.
That's where it's located.
All right, so let's pull this in, okay? And
Coffee drinkers.
I guess I'll just take a straw poll. Greg, do you feel comfortable conditionally approving this plan, looking at the vote this
conditional
evening, or
approval.
do you feel
A
that-
conditional approval, yes. I think if we're comfortable, we had a
Tim,
good
do you-
discussion about the use. We've had a lot of questions answered.
Tim,
I
are you
feel happy.
comfortable or voting on this motion this evening, or do you think that it warrants further continuation just to make sure that we're 100%?
Well, I mean, I will say the items that are left in Keach's second letter are additions to, so the site plan as presented tonight is not going to incur any large changes. So if they add a lighting plan, that's an additional sheet, wouldn't, make any modifications. And I think that's the same with all of the comments. The one thing that could result in some site plan changes would be the driveway permit, if DOT wants some changes there. But it's their road, so if they're looking for big changes, it would be nice to comment on that.
So,
But, the flip side of that coin is DOT driveway permits, sometimes, they run a long time, and so we've almost on a regular basis, we make receipt of the driveway permit a conditional use.
yeah, and we mentioned that earlier, that the NHDOT driveway permits are backed up, right? So if we continue everything until we get that clarified, we're not going to get anywhere. So maybe the important thing is to condition things upon, should there be changes required through from the DOT, that somehow, the plan's got to be considered or reconsidered or something along those lines. Yes, John?
Yeah, a perfect up-to-date example in regard to what can happen with DOT review of driveway permits, can be an MD. We just received a letter today. And if what they're recommending right now stands, and I don't know if it will, they have to come back, and they're going to have to relocate their building.
All right,
So,
See, this is
I
not-
see that
it's
we
the
have-
wrong location.
but what I'm getting at is that it's conditional.
Yeah.
We would not get anywhere if we didn't conditionally approve anything, especially when you're talking about a 6-month elongated review process for modifications of the driveway. And then whatever they're calling for, there's still room for negotiation for the engineers to work out, the project engineers. And, there is a lot of detail that can be worked out that doesn't have to encumber or bog down this planning board.
That was my other question.
what I will say is that the way that the conditional, the motion is written, it says receive NHDOT driveway permit number, and so on, noted on the plan. I think that if we can also add to that sentence, whether it's this month or in a continued hearing, we should have some language that says something to the effect of, upon, changes to the DOT permit or other requirements, that the site, the plan must come back to the board for additional review, something along those lines.
Well, if it doesn't receive, Mr. Chairman, if it doesn't receive the DOT sign-off,
Yeah.
it doesn't get signed by this board.
True.
That's the condition. They have to cross their Ts with DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Karen?
That's my other question is, we've always had engineers all around New Hampshire. Why is it Brentwood, Tennessee? We've never had one from out of state or anything. I mean, I was just curious about that, too.
Well, so we were also involved in one in Dover and one in Manchester as well. We're located in Brentwood, Tennessee. HCA is headquartered in Nashville. We work on a lot of these facilities around the country.
All right, thank you.
I've just never seen one here in the planning board, so.
It's fairly common for franchise kind of
Okay.
things to have,
Yep.
when we were dealing with Walmart, we were dealing with somebody in the Midwest,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Larger
that's fairly
corporations,
common.
yeah. They probably thought they were nicer down there anyways than the engineers up here. All right.
So are we ready? Do you think?
You know, I'm of the opinion that I'm okay. I don't think that anything really changes from now to next month for us. As long as we capture that any conditions need to be satisfied. I don't know that the board's going to come up with anything else. That's my opinion, but if anybody else feels otherwise, then I don't have a problem continuing it either. And Greg, you said you were okay with it. I'm okay with it. But if Tim and Karen have concerns, then we can wait and just do our due diligence and vote on this next month.
I guess, after looking more closely at the items in Keach's letter, I guess I'd be,
See, I haven't even had a
Happy
chance
with
to
it.
look this over. I just all of a sudden, they threw it at us. And we have not had a chance to do, like we have done for every other plan, to go over both letters, look at what happened, look at the new plans. We haven't had the chance with this one.
Yeah,
We
we
made everybody else do it.
have some non-applicant discussions this evening about some of our processes to make sure that the board has everything they need to, see, it's fair for both us and the applicants, frankly, so.
So is it okay if I make that motion?
Yeah, and the only thing I'm going to say, one last thing is,
Yeah.
again, I'm going to rely on Tim's experience. If he has any other conditions that he thinks is important,
Why
or
don't we
any other
discuss that?
language.
Why don't we discuss that first? What other conditions would we like to add on to this conditional approval?
If we put the motion forth.
Yeah.
Is there anything else, Tim, that you see that we might be
Or-
prudent?
Or Karen?
Yeah,
no,
anybody.
I don't see anything else.
John, do you see anything that,
No,
jumps in your
because,
bed?
I mean, one thing Keach Nordstrom does, they do an incredible job for us scrutinizing, the plans. And over the years, this is the same thing. I've had incredibly scrutinizing peer review engineers for the communities. It does get to a point that they can handle working with the project engineers, the final details. And that the caveat, the controlling mechanism to make sure the plan is done correctly to the nth degree is that we get the okay letter signing off on all the features that they've been accommodated for on the site plans, and the site plans are ready for the signature of the planning board. I mean, I just don't see that we need to review this thing with the applicant further, because everything will be done in accordance with Keach's concerns, and he'll let us know about that in writing. And if that, for whatever reason, doesn't happen, they're gonna have to come back before us to, go over things in more detail. Or if something arises from the driveway issue or any other issue, they'll have to come back. But right now, I just don't see them having to. And the proof will be in the pudding if we do get, or when we get Keach's letter back and the DOT signs off on the driveway permit. And that's
so-
when it would go before the chairman for his signature.
So
Yeah.
with that said, and the fact that I have not heard any additional requirements that we want to put on there, either from Tim or Karen, I'll start off and propose this. I move to approve the plan for 26 Plaistow Road, tax map 25, lot 4, which proposes the demolition of an existing retail building and the construction of a new 9,500 square foot, 24-hour outpatient healthcare facility with related parking, drainage, lighting, and landscaping with the following conditions: receipt of the New Hampshire DOT driveway permit and permit number and approval date noted on the plan. Receipt of the New Hampshire DES septic design construction approval and the approval number and date noted on the plan. All comments in the K&A Revision 2 or subsequent reports are addressed and the plan updated accordingly. All comments in the December 14th, 2021 staff checklist review are addressed and the plan updated accordingly. The ZBA variance approval is noted on the plan by section and approval date. Appropriate professional stamps on all final plans. And not as part of the motion, but if you look on the last page of the report, we just want to note this. This project will be subject to public safety impact fees in the amount of $1,866.90. And also recording and pre-construction bonding. Information regarding the recording, bonding, and pre-construction process will be provided in the notice of decision.
That it should not be part of the motion.
Yeah, so we
Not part of the motion.
don't bother with that in the motion. We'll come back after that.
Okay.
And then I'll reread that, but
Okay.
do I have a second to the actual motion language?
I'll second.
Tim seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Karen, opposed? Vote passes 3-1-0. I will also note, as what Greg was saying, impact fees, the project will be subject to public safety impact fees in the amount of $1,866.90. This is calculated as the net gain in square footage of 1,470 square feet. 9,500 proposed, existing is 8,030 times $1.27 per square foot. If the square footage of the new building changes, then this number would be adjusted accordingly. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. Do you have a timeline on the construction, or?
Breaking ground hopefully later this year and opening in spring or late spring of 2023.
Okay. Will you have a grand opening or something like that? Great. If you share that with the board, we'd be interested in hearing that. And just let us know.
When is the CD supposed to open up?
Thank you.
Thank you.
When is the convenient MD going to open up? They've been here thousands of times. What is holding them up? How come they're not breaking ground, just like everybody else?
Maybe the DOT.
They were waiting for the DOT.
Well, that's going to be their problem, too.
Yep.
All right, so that concludes public hearings on the applications. I think there's two themes here that I want to kind of come back to. Number one is the overarching discussion about what drives certain businesses to come here. Are they beneficial to the town? I think that's part of our overall discussion about the economic development plan and how can we help drive that. Number two, John, I think that, we've kind of come through the holidays. We had a holiday on Monday, but I think if we can reestablish, our guidelines state that we should have all documents Friday prior to the meeting. We understand that didn't happen. We also understand that staff is really busy, but also staff isn't available on Fridays. So I think we're going to have to just state that all documents need to be to the members by Friday, which in this case would be Thursday if D is not available on Fridays.
I deal with that schedule in Georgetown. It's Monday through Thursday that we work.
Yeah.
My packet's got to be out the door. No excuses Thursday. Because I'm not going in that Friday.
Yeah.
Unless just everything's backed up. But you guys do need to have information preceding the meeting, insufficient time that you have a chance to thoroughly read through it and maybe a second time. So I totally get it. I don't know whether Dee was off one of the days or sick one of the days, I can't remember, but last week was a really tight week. I was able to get an email out to you guys forewarning you about what was going on.
Yep.
Did everybody receive that?
Yes,
Yeah.
except Laurie didn't, but,
Yeah, and then Monday, just, it's one of those holidays that really messed things up.
yeah, it's a holiday that more and more people are taking, and, you know, obviously, it's an important holiday, but it's one that, you know, everybody knows Memorial Day, Labor Day.
Holidays.
Yeah,
Another week would have been.
yeah. That being said, you know, it's not about any of the individuals. We know that, right, Dee, as an assistant, does a great job, tons of work. But we also know she's in our budget as a planning board sort of budget, and yet she's probably overly swamped with trash barrels right now. So,
She filled in for Beth when Beth was out
yeah,
with COVID.
Okay.
So that's another problem that didn't, just timing-wise, it hit in the worst time.
so what I'll say is this, and it's not it's nothing against any individual per se. It's that I think that we just need to have all our documents by Thursday, unless there's special circumstances. Otherwise, it's not fair to us or the applicants, because I think part of what happened tonight was that we were all a little bit confused. We're all flipping through pages, and
I hadn't read it all.
and so we kind of look like we're a little bit unprepared, and we don't have all the information. So in essence, we almost continued that more because of an internal issue than whether or not their application was done. So I'll just make mention of that. I'll just reiterate that, you know, this is what our preference is, and otherwise we may have to.
I'm hoping from here on out, you know, that a regular working pattern does, you know, establish itself.
Yeah.
I mean, the holidays always knock everybody off their schedule. But to have another holiday within 2 weeks of the last, you know, break, you know, that just throws everybody off,
Yeah.
work schedule wise.
COVID's an issue too, so. Yes, Karen?
Okay, just one comment. I'd like to know, how do we get to advertise to the NHMA for a code officer? Because with all these things going on, there is no way that any of this should be done without a code officer, not the same person wearing all 12 hats so far. I just think it's unfair. I don't think it's right to that person or to us. I think we need a code officer, and I want to know why it's not been advertised, just online, why it hasn't been advertised to the NHMA, which we pay for, and it would be free for them to do so. This cannot keep going on. That's it.
I will, that's a takeaway I'll address. Again, I feel strongly that it's important to have a code enforcement officer. I think we said this at the last meeting. There's
For months.
the rules and regulations and ordinances, then we review plans, and then we hand them off. And the question is, what happens after that? You know, we lose our authority at that point, or
Yep.
so. John, have you had any discussion? Do you have any discussion? What kind of level of discussion do you have with Mr. Colby about code enforcement and the importance? And
Honestly, I haven't had any discussion with him on that. I thought Dee was
Yep, exactly.
handling the administrative aspects as a zoning determiner.
zoning determination, yes.
The building inspector was the in-the-field code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
If that's not the case, then there isn't anybody in the field reviewing what's going on or investigating any zoning infractions.
I think we have someone part-time. Is that what we have? Is that we have a,
Yeah.
he's also the health?
Plumbing, is what I heard.
Yeah, the other thing is, when I'm here on Friday, nobody else is here.
You need a code officer with his business, with his job. Yes, we have to pay him. I think the town would be willing to pay him. I think that's the problem. Nobody wants to pay one for one.
But Karen, I really believe there's not an infinite supply of funding for personnel. And that's a reality. I mean, and I think, everybody has to get tuned in in the budgetary process. This town's, doesn't have, obviously just doesn't have an infinite supply of funding for personnel, or there would be more personnel.
Do the members of this board feel that code enforcement is a problem in this town?
I do know of towns, they have a code enforcement officer. Fire department is the building inspecting department, because fire departments have a lot of authority, statutory authority, when it comes to inspecting buildings as they're being built, electrical and stuff. Some communities in New Hampshire have adopted bylaws whereby the fire department is the building inspecting division also.
Yeah.
Leaving the opportunity for funding for a zoning enforcement officer. That person could either be under the auspices of the fire chief or the town manager. That's an either-or situation.
I'll reach out to Mr. Colby. I'll ask, what exactly do we have
Asking, can we
budgeted
advertise?
for our code enforcement? What is our plan to support it? I do believe that we have code enforcement challenges. I think that because we haven't had any authority or much or consistent authority, that there's probably a lot of violations out
We
there.
had one for years.
We actually removed a code enforcement officer. As far as I understand,
Retired.
it was in the budget. No, he didn't retire.
Oh, the second one, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about.
Yeah, so it was actually in the budget. It was a slot. What I don't know is whether or not that was taken out of this year's budget. And so my concern is we're now expressing a need for something, for a budget that's done, that's effectively is going to go to the people for their vote. And so if there is not money in the budget for our code enforcement officer, you may have to wait until next year.
I think that would be unfortunate.
It would
Yes.
be.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
From all my years of experience, I can tell you that there's nobody better at interpreting zoning than Dee, especially for this town. I am not exaggerating. I talk to her almost daily about issues that she's wrestling with uses that are being proposed in districts, and, what do I think? And, I have this rapport and have had this rapport with, building officials for years and years. She has an incredible capacity to grasp all this, and she knows the zoning ordinances inside and out. To a point, I'm like, you're being way overboard. For instance, today, there's a proposed use in an existing building. It's a change of use, but it's not an increase in the square footage. It's within the zoning category of uses allowed within the zoning district. I'm like, why does that cause site plan? Well, they don't have an active site plan. Well, do they have a site plan? Why does this change of use, which isn't going to increase traffic with the change of use, it's a use allowed within the categorical uses. There's a huge school of thought with this stuff. And I said, I just don't see it. And she's arguing with me that, yeah, but it's a change of use, and we don't have a valid site plan for that, and that constitutes that them having to come in for site plan review. Well, I think we compromised to a point where the proposed owner of this property will come before the board and explain what's going on, and the board may or may not require site plan review. But, what I'm getting at is that she takes that job so seriously. She does such a good job. Nobody gets away with anything. And you know what? A lot of towns would love to have that capacity and that passionate person involved with this stuff. it cuts off a lot of problems
Yeah.
that could arise.
Well, I did stress that with Mr. Colby last year, is that we felt it was important to have all plans and all potential applications be reviewed for zoning determination
Yeah.
and, you know, I think that you're right, Dee's experience with that. What we also lack, though, is zoning enforcement after the fact.
Yeah.
And Dee wears so many hats right now, I mean.
Oh, yeah, no, but.
That's my,
but I'm
that's my
saying-
biggest concern for, it's not
Right.
Yeah,
that Dee's
Mr.
work is not
Yeah.
there, it's that poor
Mr.
Dee
Mr.
is stretched thin, that it's
Mr.
gotta,
Chairman, I got to also emphasize, I mean, some people in this profession are not cut out for it. They're afraid to make a decision. They don't have the analytical capacity to make a decision, you know, and they just, they waver from it. The opposite is true with Dee. She's a lion with this stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, she's not afraid to make a decision because she's capable of making this. She has that mental capacity. She doesn't shy away from things.
No
You know,
doubt.
maybe she needs to take off one of the other hats and be appointed to this position that we're talking about,
yeah, true.
you know,
I
as a
mean,
primary.
that, again, if we could clone Dee, we'd be all the better for it. It's again, it's just, I feel, the workload is tremendous.
They're the rarest of species to find because it's not a pleasant job.
Yeah.
Enforcing zoning is not a pleasant job. It's really a tough job.
All right, so I'll take this as something I own, is to reach out and get some clarification about, A, the budgetary allotment for the position and what we're doing to advertise or seek someone to fill the position.
I would recommend for you to say, to whoever you're talking to, and I'll work with anybody that wants to work with this. If anything, it's probably the least expensive way out. If Dee, you talk to her, she needs an assistant, an administrative assistant, to help her get through her workload. I think she'd make a hell of a supervisor of anybody that will work for her and get what needs to get done. And that's really, I think that would be an important issue
Yeah,
to take up with, with Greg. And it's probably the least expensive way to handle it and take care of it.
yeah. Was it our prior town manager that really started offloading stuff to her?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that hasn't seemed to change,
No, I
so,
think she's got a lot more on her plate now than
Yeah.
ever. And I honestly, I don't know how she does it. She just keeps plugging
What's-
away at it. But
just as a sidebar, are we actively looking for another town manager, or are we,
No, Greg Kobe has been named
he
permanent.
has been named, okay, I missed that, so.
Well, I think, the missing piece here, as far as I'm concerned, is the site, the after-construction enforcement, where,
You're constantly out.
one of our regulations states that parking lots must be maintained, and so where there's stripes for parking spaces and handicap signature, et cetera, that needs to be kept up to date.
Right.
Well, you can imagine, any one of us can see if there's a handicap sign. I mean, that's not a big deal. But if you go through all the parking lots of all the businesses through the whole town, that's a heck of a lot of work. And that needs to be done annually.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's just a boatload of those kinds of things. Plus the occasional infraction where somebody has put a new shed up that's not on the site plan, or has moved something that's in the setback, and, there's all those kinds of things.
It's just for one person.
So, yeah, we really need a almost a full-time person to
He
do that.
explained to me, Mike Dorman used to do that on an annual basis. That was part of his job, that he would go
Yeah.
from site to site and, cite them if they weren't keeping up with their properties.
But, I mean, even when Mike did that, when one side of the picture, like if there's a lot of building, his time is tied up as the building inspector.
Yeah.
And what slips is the having time to patrol, to do the code enforcement. So although it's pretty common to combine those positions, I think we're at the point where we can't, we need a separate full-time code enforcement
Period.
officer.
Yep,
In a lot of times, these issues,
I
as you
agree.
well know, everybody knows here, we've had to wrestle with them, they end up in court. You know,
They will very well,
like wrestling with an anaconda to get them to comply with zoning. And,
yeah.
you know, they just know they can work the system to their advantage for years. It's sad. You know, I mean, there's nothing better than driving through town and not seeing, you know, these unsightly locations, you know, because it's part of the health of the community. And, you know, it's obviously part of the aesthetic value. You know, anybody can tell a community that has pride in itself versus ones that are out of control. You know, and we see that on TV more often than we want to. As a nationwide situation. When I drive around this town, though, I can tell you, I like driving around this town. It has a lot of aesthetic features and value to it, and, you know, individual property ownership pride, and, you know, it just has a lot going for itself. And there's a lot to be proud about, you know, as opposed to, you know, what we do drive by and see, you know, in other places.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, our plan, we had some good discussion at our first meeting this month about what our goals are for 2022. I think that laying the groundwork for an economic development plan is good. I think that within that, we should all be discussing what we see as a vision for development and, or lack there, you know, whatever it might be, for the land use in this town. And then how do we either affect through warrant articles or any other things, the capacity to, you know, make sure that we achieve methods that allow for the businesses that we think are beneficial to come in, and frankly, ways to mitigate the ones that we maybe don't want to see here, if that's possible. So I think that's all part of our discussion. So I think that, I just want to finish this thought, John. Let's get through the old business, the new business on the agenda, and let's also just confirm what our goals are for the next February meeting. Again, I think one of the takeaways was to have ideas about how we can poll the townspeople about, you know, what they want to see out of development in the
Survey.
community. Yeah, getting a survey together. And how best to achieve that. But go ahead, John, finish that thought, and let's go on to the old business, new business stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you know, in accordance with our last workshop, I did start working on researching the economic development plan prospects that Tim brought up. And I'll have some good examples of that to give to the board leading up to our next workshop. In advance of the workshop, so you'll have time to read through some of the stuff, just to get the thought process started. But, you know, I really think that as far as the survey goes, that may take the workshop a decent amount of time at a workshop to, you know, hammer out the questions that we want to ask.
yeah, we each-
Well, we have updated our subscription or whatever, our payment, right, to RPC?
Yep,
Tim, do they have resources for this type of stuff, or would they be able to provide some guidance?
Well, I mean, typically, the RPC will send a letter out in the fall stating what the town's dues are, so they could get it in the budget. And then they'll send another letter late March, early April, after our town meeting, with the same request. So I think typically we wouldn't pay the dues until after town meeting. Right? I'm sure that budget got,
Yeah, I think that's right, Tim, because I think when it came before us, it was almost like May, somewhere around there, I think.
yeah.
So our membership is active or not quite yet
Will be
reactivated?
after the
Not quite yet.
Okay. And in your opinion, would the RPC be a resource for economic development work and that kind of stuff?
I think so. I mean, one of the, I guess, the recommendation I would have is on one of our, assuming the dues all gets passed and so forth, one of our workshops would be to ask Tim Roach to come to a workshop meeting and explain what their capabilities are, what they could or could not do,
Boy,
and how much it would cost.
yep.
There is some fraction of our dues that can be applied to that, so he could explain that as well.
Okay. Well, so it sounds like we can have that discussion, but we're probably going to have to wait a couple months?
Yep.
Yeah.
But we could still do the survey, right? We could bring in a couple of questions, even if
Oh,
it's
sure.
just amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Just what do you think is important?
Whenever
Even
I
if it's just
do
two or three, you
business
know?
proposals, I like to take the old one I did for someone else, and I just use that as a baseline. So if we can, say the RPC had, hey, we do a general survey.
Yep.
I would not be nice and easy to say, oh, well, here's their 40 questions, we're going to pare it down to 20, and we're going to get rid of some and add some, whatever it might be, you know what I
We'll
mean?
see what ours does
Yes,
first.
why create the wheel if it's already there?
Yeah, yeah, so copy someone's wheel and make it better, make it customized, but, so, I'm sure we might be able to find something online if someone has the time to do some research about that, or the RPC might already have some stuff that they've done for other communities. Okay, well, that'll be part of our February 2nd agenda.
Yep.
And on new business, John, do we have anything to discuss?
We
There'll be
do.
nothing coming up now.
Matter of fact, there were 3 site plans and a subdivision plan that came in this week. Those are going to be scheduled for their initial public hearing, application acceptance for the second meeting in February to meet the deadline. You know, it's not a situation where we have to take any final action on any of these. This will be the initial public hearings, and then we can schedule them in the coming weeks thereafter. But they all have to do right now with 125, the big warehouse that's being proposed, 1,000 square foot.
Oh, brother.
We'll have our hands full site plan review / subdivision wise for that meeting. Those plans just came in.
Yeah,
We were expecting them, but, you know, it takes months for, you know, a project like that to actually be engineered.
we should ask to go see this place, to the property, and,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
you can
fully
walk out there,
engaged
but it's like walking into a field. I mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
Really not much to see.
They have been fully engaged since they did come in to talk to us on a preliminary basis.
That was
with
just
DOT.
preliminary. Right.
So they worked out a lot of the details, especially relative to what DOT's doing for an improvement project.
Yeah, and I think that's what was in my head when I mentioned that. They're doing the next stretch of 125
Up to Kingston.
redevelopment starts around that area, right? Probably where MB Tractor is and further up.
Yeah. Yeah, they're creating it's really a median strip and shoring up the shoulders of the roadway, you know. Right now, it's under construction standards where it should be, handling the volume and the,
That's C3,
Highway.
correct?
yeah, high levels of truck traffic associated with it. So they're modernizing that tight section of 125.
C3 into but industrial as well, Karen,
I know.
on the other side.
Industrial's really to the back, though, the roadway.
Yeah,
Roadway to all that industrial park is in the back of them, not in front.
Everybody is aware of the vote the other night, ZBA-wise. They had a self-storage facility that Although
Yeah.
it was probably the best-looking self-storage facility I've ever seen in my life.
That would have been number 8 for the
Better
town.
than a lot of office buildings I've seen.
That would have been number 8 for the town.
And what happened, John?
It was a
Well, it was
3-2
not,
vote.
it was a 3-2 to vote against allowing the change of use because they wanted to go, technically, they're supposed to be in industrial, is that right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to go into commercial, and
Oh.
it wasn't allowed use, but they could have gotten a variance. And frankly, I thought they were going to give it the approval, but it narrowly wasn't approved 3
It
to
was
2.
a hard, impressive-looking building, I think, if I was sitting there to deny. That's
Yeah.
how nice this thing was.
Well, there's not many lots left in this town, and if they're all self-store, whatever,
No job
name that
creation
business.
with them. There was a certain amount of added value. The one thing to take into consideration, they are not big traffic producers.
Yeah.
They're like facades, there's, with no activity.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to get rid of this stuff in my house. I don't need a place to store my stuff.
Exactly. God,
Definitely.
I cannot
When you
believe people are
figure that out,
disappointed
will
in
you
that
let me
one.
know?
That's what it
Yeah,
is.
did 125 used to have, did we used to call it like the Auto Mile in Plastow? Did we have that moniker
That
going
was
for a
for a
bit?
very quick time.
It was
That
the
very
the
quick.
trailer mile.
Trailer mile?
All the
Yeah.
renter trails,
That was a quick one.
Nothing official.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start seeing self-storage mile.
RV mile.
You want to
Before I
store your
learned to
crap?
compare, I thought this town was very difficult to locate, before I found my way around.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know.
Because Salem is right off the highway. Everybody knows how to get to Salem,
Store your crap here, buy your booze and cigarettes. and
Right.
Right.
We
Get your
seem to be pretty
tires.
popular.
Store your stuff
Yep.
now.
That
then
queuing,
store it
that
all.
afternoon queuing of traffic, that used to scare me away.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But that's not bad. I've timed it every time I go up and down. It's 8 minutes, tops.
You know when there's traffic? 6:30 in the morning, okay? I travel over to Londonderry
Yeah.
3 days a week. We go over there. At 6:30 in the morning. You would not believe the traffic
Yeah.
that is
I
in
would.
out here. Go up there to
Absolutely.
turn that left for Dunkin' Donuts.
Yep.
You wait forever.
Yep.
And there's traffic going both ways on this. I'm going, okay, then we come back, because then we have to go pick up again. And just in that morning, when you say there's nothing in the morning, late morning, early afternoon, wrong.
Yeah.
You try to get out again, and there's that traffic coming right back and forth into Shaw's, into Demoulas. It just, there is no end, and I can vouch for that, for doing it 3 days for a week.
You know who owns that bad stretch and who's the cause of that? Massachusetts. No, but honestly, like, too bad we couldn't,
I'm-
if Haverhill ever,
There.
If
Hey-
these gas prices keep going up,
Yeah.
that's going to slow down the amount of traffic.
Who put in that light finally?
They're eating.
Right, remember that arguing with them? And then they go and put the light in afterwards anyway. Oh my God, I couldn't believe, I remember those days.
yeah, it's, and
I
Haverhill
just
has
don't wanna see
no,
it worse.
that's a great little moneymaker, that little stretch that borders Plastow for them. And then, but, they would have to probably do eminent domain taking to widen that road and re-engineer that. It'd be a ton of
We
money.
tried it, 2 lanes, they tried.
It's really our problem, not their problem. And that's unfortunate because they wouldn't be motivated to
Fix us.
fix that.
The only thing you probably do is just keep on investing in the traffic lights and maximizing the sequencing. And what I do notice is that one leaving town does maximize leading out to 121. That queue can empty out from Heavenly Donuts all the way down to 121 in one light cycle. So, if you think you get a chance of beating the light better, that queuing of traffic by going down, through the shopping center or the street by Heavenly Donut down to 121, that doesn't work.
Yeah, it really needs,
Staying in that queue.
it really needs 2 lanes north, 2 lanes south, or 2 lanes east, 2 lanes west. That bottleneck, once you get to Uno's, and then all the way to 495.
Everyone's yards.
If you go.
Yeah.
if you use that
You'd have to
as a
do
side
that,
road,
There used to be 3 lanes on
Right
that
after,
road.
oh,
really?
A lane in the
Well,
middle.
they've actually tried it.
It's
And it
dangerous
was
going out
wicked
that way.
dangerous because
There's
both lanes wanted to use it.
There are some parts where the 3 lanes are there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was saying earlier, people don't know how to use those.
No, no.
John, you said we received a letter from NHDOT regarding that intersection at Walmart. Is that shareable at this time? Do you have?
I don't have a copy of it, but I'll make sure Dee dishes that out to everybody.
Yes, that would be great.
What's the gist of it? Do you know?
Well,
Did they listen to us?
oh, yeah, yeah. I think they may get a little perturbed hearing from us and then getting us back for bothering them. That's the feeling I get. So I'll let you guys read it.
Okay.
There's a lot of modification they're calling for relative to the associated traffic of the MD facility.
Really?
They're templating truck traffic on that particular site, of which when we went over, we're talking vans, tops. There's not going to be tractor-trailer brakes
No.
pulling in and out of there. I mean, I get the feeling that you stay out of our business, we stay out of your business. I think there has to be a treaty or, just a meeting of the minds and maybe this group meeting to iron things out. What can we do to make your job easier? What can you do to make our job easier? How can we work better together?
Yeah.
Let's not be enemies with one another or have any type of animosity. Because what's happening is these driveway permits are being backed up. And it is affecting our local economy. We need them to step up to the plate and work in a more orderly manner, timely manner.
I thought our letters were very fair. I thought
so
all we did was say we're recommending a no U-turn
And why?
at Westville, because that's an accident-prone site. And by the way, if we change the sequencing so people don't jut across this, and it's not an intersection that's 100% square, straight on, which adds to the problem, is people don't see that someone's coming and cutting across. And we just said, change the sequence so they're not universal. They're at the same
And
time.
thing is, too,
Have they come down?
no traffic authority should ever recognize a private property as a major roadway for traffic flow.
Interesting.
Roadway traffic is supposed to be on roadways.
Yeah. And they're trying to treat their lot like it's a road?
Yeah.
I don't think that was our intention. I know that wasn't our intention.
And, hey, everybody wants to get to and from as conveniently as possible.
Yeah.
The least amount of resistance, the least amount of queuing, everybody invents these, cutways, these cut-throughs. But, a whole roadway system, network system using a private property to cut through to get to a traffic signal, of which it's dangerous because of the volume and speed in the offsetting of
Yep.
the intersection. That
But-
causes it.
But
It's the offset.
it's inevitable because the fact that there's so much traffic,
Yeah,
people are frustrated.
Okay.
yeah, and
And
there's
they're
nobody,
looking
that
for
building's
This is
been
my
an
empty.
easy way to get out of the traffic.
Yeah.
And technically, they're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Technically,
Yep.
they are, they're breaking the law.
Yep.
But you're removing one car
Yeah,
and you're making it actually flow better.
yeah. And there's no monitoring going on.
No.
How long now? Nobody's been in that building, so that's a roadway.
Yeah.
Right, and
This
that's-
was my
that's the big thing,
point
'cause that
tonight,
building's
was
empty.
location.
And what they'll do is they'll
Again,
stuck that into the
location.
bank.
Why haven't they even looked at C3? Why didn't they look up there? Why didn't one of them look at property up there?
Are you talking about one of the medical places?
There wasn't an approved site plan with a building that was already there.
Yeah.
So for them to move into,
A regular lot.
yeah, but they would,
Why couldn't they do that?
They look at it like this, Karen.
because
There's a lot of traffic here. This is where we want to be.
Yeah, he said as
Well,
such.
for
He said we
emergency
look
though,
at-
you
they-
go
we
where
look
you
at-
can go. You're gonna go where you need to go.
You can't get a better peak flow of traffic, max flow of traffic.
I can see
anywhere
being
than-
stopped.
Yeah.
I can see not getting there
Yeah.
with this traffic.
Yeah.
It was up there, you wouldn't have that problem.
They're looking at it from the standpoint that traffic is good, not
Oh,
traffic
yeah.
is bad. So I
Get
think,
any better than a Market Basket, Kohl's, Home Depot, and Walmart. The draw,
yeah.
you get the locate right there? Oh, this is gonna work out great.
It's going to take some large business to
Move up there.
develop on the other side of the railroad tracks, and
Yeah.
then that will open up
Yep.
the whole.
And that should be part of
I
our
agree.
development, economic development plan, because it is a little bit of a dead zone.
Yeah.
It's, for some reason, it's like all things stop at the railroad tracks.
But I mean, how many people go all the way across, on Main Street? How many people do that now? I'm oftenly going right across the Main Street, so I go up to, past the railroad tracks, but I'll go out of town that way because I can't get out of town this way. I'll use that road. I see millions of people using that road now. And all you'd have to do is go right, there's a mall there, a little mall there, then could come the property, and it's the same thing, because you can't get out of your own town, down here.
I have a question that I want to throw out there, and it's not, it's kind of a general question, but I asked them if they were for-profit or not. Can
No,
someone
I
clarify, if they're a not-for-profit business, does that mean they do not have to pay
Taxes.
any income, any property taxes to the town?
No, they have to be IRS nonprofit. In other words, just to be nonprofit, it doesn't.
They said they were
You still can
nonprofit.
take, you still have to file taxes.
They are a for-profit.
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 Right,
Okay.
they're for-profit.
So
But
does-
if they were a 501c, then they could not pay taxes.
It's like
Did
Fish and Game.
Exeter Meds, Exeter
they
Med,
have
do
the
they pay taxes?
Right now, they do. But their interest is to
No tax.
be able to go that route.
I saw that I know that their valuation was at one point deemed to be 6 million, and now it's 3.
Under 3 million.
And their taxes,
Paid half their taxes.
Right, it's being looked at. The software that they switched over when I spoke with the town manager, it doesn't properly value medical facilities. So it's being
Okay.
looked at and redone.
okay,
Because that's going to be important.
Right, it's being looked at right now.
Okay.
yeah,
We just signed a whole bunch of different updates
okay.
Yeah.
for our appraisal values.
And I was curious about that because, you know, a lot of hospitals are not-for-profit
Right.
and systems. So if these facilities come in, but then they utilize the land, but then don't pay taxes to the town, I mean, again, their services are of value, but, you know, the argument
getting
that,
any-
hey, they're paying taxes and helping us lessen
You gotta
the
help
town's
the town,
burden.
too.
Well, no,
That's a
even,
cons-
even if they are a charitable organization, if they come in, which they all have, as profit, we don't have to change that.
Yeah.
Just because you're nonprofit doesn't mean you don't have to pay taxes.
Okay, I just want to be clear, and you know, that's what.
Because you're providing the taxes for services. So whether you're the Red Cross, it doesn't matter, you're going to
Okay.
pay taxes. But they could ask us, since we're nonprofit, would you consider
The Fish and Game
lowering
doesn't
our
pay taxes, does
That's
it?
right. Fish and Game gets away with it.
Right, but they got that from the town. They requested that from the town.
Okay, so that was an exemption?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so new business, we talked about the letter, and you guys will get us a copy. You talked about the site plans coming for February. We talked a little bit about what our goals are for the February workshop meeting.
Yeah, now, on March, we don't meet, as far as I remember correctly, because of the town meeting. There's no meetings on March. We wait because there's a new election. There's a new election then.
Right, and so the person that gets newly elected
I
on
didn't
Tues-
start till April.
on Tuesday night, we typically would meet the next Wednesday. Now, in the year that you were elected, Karen, there was something peculiar.
Yeah, because we didn't meet until the next month, and March was off. March, there was no meetings.
But I don't know, I mean, there was some other reason why we couldn't or didn't meet in that March, other than it was the next day after the election.
Yeah, I think I was elected in, and I had to go before the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
took
then-
time
I mean,
before we had
it might have
meetings.
been we didn't have a quorum,
That could be.
because you'd have newly elected members which were not yet sworn in.
Oh, you have to go to the Board of Selectmen before, after
Yeah.
you've been voted in to
Yeah,
get sworn in,
Get sworn
right?
in.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the town clerk.
Okay.
Town
That's
clerk
what I
can
did.
swear
I
you
went to
in.
town clerk.
Yeah.
There is a law in New Hampshire concerning planning boards that all planning boards must meet at least once a month.
Yeah, just once a month, doesn't say
That's
twice.
the requirement, at least
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in a situation where we had a snowstorm. And that was the one meeting we had scheduled, and we didn't have it. And, you know, our transcriber, who was, you know, real stickler for, you know, statutes, said, we have to have a meeting.
No, we
We
didn't meet
didn't have
that
one that
much.
month. You know, the law does say that you have to have one.
Okay. So we have one term expiring. That is Lori Millet's term. Today was the start of signups for positions through next week, is it?
Through next Friday, is it?
It's Friday. So
It's the 19th to the 28th, I want to say, but I don't have the calendar in front of me, but, so even though Friday the town hall is closed, Martha will be there
Okay.
on Friday.
Right, she'll be here till, what, 5 o'clock?
Right,
Just to do that.
right.
We'll see. It sounds like there could be some applicants. I'm not sure if Lori's intending to run again or not. Well, she's not here to speak to that, so we can ask her later.
Session too, not that it involves zoning.
February 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tough thing about those deliverers, was that an 8 or 9 hour marathon the other day? Last one?
It better
Yeah,
be a little warmer
last year was a long one.
there.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same, it's cold.
Well,
That's-
the
In that
difference is,
building.
this year, we're not gonna have, the back won't be open. That was the thing last year, remember?
okay.
The back was opened, and there was a
Yep.
tent back there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yes,
don't,
please.
we haven't even spoken about anything like that, so I think it'll be enclosed, so it'll be
Okay,
warmer.
okay.
Jeez, that's a tough thing. It's a Saturday, and you take up like a whole day, and
It did.
that's why
Some
people
years
don't
are
show
long-
up.
Yeah, some years are longer than others.
Yes.
That was like, might have been one of the longest I've seen. Some of them you can be done by lunchtime, right? It
Right.
really depends
We
what.
used to have
comes
them
up.
up here.
There's a lot more consensus
Get over
between
it.
the
I knew
select
you,
board
we had it right
and
here.
the budget committee this year, too. You
Yeah.
agree, Bill?
Yeah.
Although,
So that could shorten things up considerably if both the budget committee and the board of selectmen are both okay with the budget as it is. There's no reason why it should not go through unless there's,
with the recommended budget
Yeah.
over a 5% increase, plus you
You
got
have to
warrant
give the people a
articles, you got
chance
you got
to
deliberative.
do job.
Oof, this could be a
Sure you do.
big money ask this year.
Definitely do.
It's gonna be tough.
You have to.
Can't take that away.
All right. Anything? So if anybody else knows of anybody that's interested in running, we have the one position.
should we also consider recruiting some alternates?
I had someone reach out to me that there may be some reasons why that may not be a good option, but absolutely. I mean, I think the more the merrier, and
That is going to continue.
I said to Dee today, if you make something controversial and you put it on Facebook, like, oh, the town is screwing me, you'll get 300 responses in like 3 hours. But if we say, hey, we've got alternates, who wants to talk about, your concerns about XYZ types of businesses here, it's like crickets, So maybe we just need to put something on Facebook, make it sound
Make it
controversial.
controversial, right? Yeah.
We get a lot of participation.
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Yeah. Don't rile up the people that are good. with what's
Can you
going on.
believe Tim Moore wants more of these businesses to come in? No, yeah. Oh, my God. Just
More
kidding.
wants
Just
more.
kidding. Yeah. It's in his name. All right. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. With that, we'll close the meeting at 8:50. Thank you.